there.
Yeah. Just trying to prove that I am not going bald yet.
No, yeah. Points made and taken, I promise. Sorry, how
So it's been a bit of a shock for people seeing me with the full blown
with the
hair.
loss
Right?
of
Hi, Jamila. Hi,
Fine, thank you, sir.
Harry.
Good evening, boss.
Hi. Good evening.
Yeah, so we'll start any moment now. Just we'll wait another minute or thereabout, and we'll start if you don't mind.
That's fine.
It's okay.
All right, good to see you. All right. Looks like we're very close. Okay. I think it's 5 on the dot. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think we have a couple of people in the house now, and I mean, just to align with our recent tradition, we'd like to start right on time. Can you confirm if you can still hear me? I tried to change my...
You're loud and clear.
All right. Thank you, Demola. It's nice to have everybody. Like I said, we're starting right about now. It's an exciting session for me, chiefly because, I mean, this is something we've been having every month. I think this is our 5th edition or thereabout, and every month brings a cast of interesting, knowledgeable mentors to listen and learn from. But one of the reasons why I'm very excited for this edition is because we'll be talking about a topic which I find extremely exciting, something that I have personal investment in. I have a passion for learning from failures. I particularly like reading autobiographies because many successful people get to share details of their seemingly successful seasons. And so you learn a lot more about what are the things that they picked along the way and what has made them successful. So for today's edition, we're going to be learning and listening to 3 of the best in our industry. I'm particularly excited to listen to them. One of them, quite clearly, is a mentor of mine and somebody I like to listen to again and again. I hope for as many proteges as are in the room, and for some of our mentors who've joined us today, I'm very convinced that you pick a trick or two, but more importantly, we'll learn a secret or two. One of the good things about learning from failures is that you will hear news that you won't find in the newspapers. You will hear about stories that you won't see on your TV screen. And so I'm excited because we're going to hear 1 or 2 things today that we've definitely not heard about our speakers. So without much ado, I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers in no particular order, or perhaps maybe I should just start with the lady. So allow me a moment. Let me just pull up their profile. So I will start with Rosemary Akpo. So allow me quickly read through. In almost 2 years working in the experiential marketing agency space, Rosemary has led the transformation of the fortunes of EXP Marketing, where she holds the position of managing director of the group. Rosemary transitioned into this position nearly 18 years after working in FMCG sectors across companies like Suntory Beverages and Foods, GlaxoSmithKline, Coca-Cola, British American Tobacco, across their various emerging markets in Africa. She's made the business far more attractive to marketers, having been one herself. Our understanding of the challenges faced by marketing people across the continent has led to several out-of-the-box initiatives and solutions that has been executed to address some of these challenges that the business face. She's passionate about people, developing the next level of leaders, as well as growing our influence in the experiential marketing sector. Before joining EXP Marketing Group, which includes Group Africa Production JP, Rosemary was also managing director at Suntree Beverages and Foods. Before then, she held similar position as GlaxoSmithKline. Over there, she and her team of marketers led the growth of Lucozade and Ribena brands through innovative festival ideas such as PET UTC promo, Magic Price Point Initiative, and many, many, many others. She holds a bachelor's degree in physics, which is interesting for me, physics and electronics from the University of Cross River, Calabar, and a postgraduate diploma from the Federal University of Technology, Owerri. There's a whole lot more there. I don't want to mention, but I mean, the best way to end this is to say Rosemary is a wife to one husband, and she's a mother of 4 beautiful children. That's the way she likes to describe herself. If you don't mind, I would appreciate if you can mute your mics a moment and just help me welcome her with a good round of applause. All right, welcome, man. It's nice to have you.
Thank you, Larry. I just want to correct something in my profile that you read. I was marketing director Suntory and marketing director at GlaxoSmithKline, which is where Langbe and I knew each other from. Not managing director, marketing director.
All right, that is noted and will be updated when we're uploading the video. Thank you for joining us, spending the time to be with us this evening.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. The next speaker I would like to recognize is Mr. Victor Gbenga Folabi. He's a passionate and visionary leader who has, in the last 20 years, not only displayed and demonstrated an exceptional knack for turning businesses around, but he's also sustainably bettered several business ventures with an unbroken chain of top and bottom line growth across multidisciplinary industries. A consummate venture capitalist, Victor has the innate ability to create energized and consumer-centric culture of continuous improvement, innovation, and creative but tailored strategies to ultimately position companies to its competitive landscape. Over the years, ultimately grew market share consistently, whilst also sustainably improving bottom line profits. Victor Gbenga Folabi is the Chief Executive Officer of Azon Holdings, a diversified business holding company, and the founder of Eco Innovation Center, an enterprise development center for startups and MSMEs who deploy technology and innovations in the area of agriculture, healthcare, market access, renewable energy, and fintech. He holds a Bachelor of Pharmacy degree from ABU Zaria and a master's degree in managerial psychology from the University of Ibadan. He also holds an MBA from Alliance Business School, Manchester University in the UK, and is an alumnus of the Lagos Business School. He's part of the team that developed the Lagos State Innovation Master Plan 2020 to 2025. He's an Acumen partner and also a member of several professional bodies and recipient of many awards in Nigeria. Please join me as we recognize and welcome again Mr. Victor Gbenga Folabi. Please welcome, sir. Thank you very much. The round of applause. The last but not least is a man I respect quite well and also a mentor of mine. He's been a long-standing mentor to the Brit faculty. We've been trying quite a while to pull him onto the stool, and it's such an honor for me to be the one anchoring today. I would like to introduce Mr. Langbe Omoyele. He's a widely respected business leader and mentor in the marketing and communication industry across the continent. He's currently managing director at Nitro 121, one of West Africa's leading marketing, communication, and brand management companies. He's also the founding partner of Lucent Consulting Company, a business strategy and human capital development consultancy. He has previously been managing director Nelson West Africa, and Africa managing marketing director of family nutrition segment of GSK Consumer Healthcare. He was marketing director at Nutrisima, a PZ Customs company. He was also marketing director at Etel Nigeria, marketing director at Cadbury East and Central Africa, and group product manager for foods and food and drinks and confectionery at Cadbury Nigeria. Langbe holds a BSc and MSc degrees in biochemistry and is an alumnus of the Lagos Business School. He's a fellow Nigerian Institute of Marketing in Nigeria, NIMN. He's also a trustee of the Advertisers Association of Nigeria, ADVAN. He's an associate member, Advertising Practitioner Council of Nigeria, APCON, and is a member of the Advisory Council of Advertising Week Africa. He's a recipient of several awards, including the Marketing Society of Kenya Warrior Award for significant contribution to the development of marketing in Kenya in 2008. Also, Chartered Marketer UK status in 2009, and Nigerian Institute of Marketing Achievers Award in 2011. In 2018, he was listed amongst the 50 most influential marketing communications practitioners in Nigeria by Brand Campaign Magazine and 100 most influential global marketing leader by the World Marketing Congress. He serves on the board of several companies and non-for-profit. He's also an adjunct faculty member at the Orange Academy and Pan-Atlantic University, Lagos, where he also teaches marketing strategy. I mean, most of us know Lankwe is a council member at Gessen Emerald Group, a leading global expert network that provides independent consulting services to business professionals worldwide. It's an honor personally for me and for very many of us in the brief faculty to welcome again and again and again our mentor, Mr. Lankwe Omoyele. Please welcome. So I mean, it's been a good day, and I'm excited to have this session. Like I said earlier, the focus for today's conversation is to listen and learn from these wonderful mentors about their personal journeys and, more importantly, their perspective about the evolution of the industry. And so this session, or today's session, is going to be broadly subdivided into two. I'm going to be asking, the first segment is I'm going to be focusing on their personal careers. Largely, we'll be looking at their professional experiences and their personal life. We're going to try to delve deep, learn from some of their experiences and the likes. The second segment is we're going to be talking about the industry, some of the challenges they have seen in the industry, some of the fails that they've noticed, and some of the learnings every one of us can pick. Just before I delve into the question, might I advise again that please let's remember our housekeeping rules. Please, as you join, try and mute your mics. If you have a question, we're going to get into the question segment. Immediately we get into the question segment, you can either post your questions in the chat room or you indicate by raising your hand. When we get to that segment, I think sometime around 6 o'clock or thereafter, I'll call us one after the other to ask our questions. And when you're asking your question, please be kind to direct your question to any of the mentors on the stool. So without further ado, and in no particular order, I'd like to start with the lady. My first question is a personal one. I mean, when I was reading out your profile, Mrs. Ekpo, you have more than 2 decades experience. And my first question is, when you were starting as a marketing upstart in marketing communication, what was your first professional goof, the first major error or the first major blunder you made that made you realize, okay, this wasn't just what I was taught in the uni, it was much more than that?
Question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right, so before I respond to your question, I wanted to first say that when I first got a call from Lankwe and then you, and you told me about the topic that you wanted us to talk about today, I first laughed really, really hard. And I said, I must be very famous for my failures in this industry. Of all the topics they will come in to come and talk about is about failure. All right, my failures are many and they are notorious. I remember one of my favorite ones is when I started my career at BAT. I just moved from sales to brand man. It was my first role in marketing. I was the brand manager on Rothmans, and my manager had asked me to order ashtrays for deploying at HoReCa outlets. So I did all the right due diligence, and then I ordered the ashtrays. And the ashtrays arrived. So they were supposed to be this size of ashtrays. So just make sure that you look at me. They were supposed to be 2 palm size because they were supposed to be placed at bars where they will be domineering. So if you walk into a bar, you will see the massive ashtray, and then you will know that Rothmans owns the outlet. By the time the trailer load full of ashtrays arrived from China, they were this small. And we had like nearly 500,000 ashtrays that were this small. First of all, when I was told that the ashtrays had arrived, I was so excited. I ran to the store. And the store manager, not realizing that that was not the right spec of ashtray, handed it over to me and said, Rosemary, is this your ashtray? They've arrived. I looked at it. I said, what? Are these the ashtrays? The store manager said, yes. I said, okay, all right. My career has now ended at this point. So I think that job was probably worth millions of naira to the company. But I think that it wasn't the ashtray that 20 years later that I remember. It was what my manager said to me. She sat me down. She said, Rosie, this is your first mistake, and it's a serious one. You're going to make many. You will make many. But you must learn from them. If you fail and you learn nothing, you have wasted that failure. So she made me sit down, write out what I learned from that experience, what I did, what I should have done, and what I would do going forward. What that thing has taught me till today, the people who work with me know. In fact, we had an event last week that didn't go well. And I do remember, before you even called me, they know me. I will ask you, what did you do that you didn't do well? What did you learn from it? What would you do differently given the same circumstances? The truth is that we say thunder doesn't strike twice in the same place. Maybe it doesn't. But sometimes it does strike twice in the same place. If you don't actually consciously sit down and ask yourself those tough questions, ask yourself what you could have done differently. If it happens again, you will make the same mistake. But if it doesn't happen again, then it's not a lesson wasted. But if it happens again, you're prepared. So I've shared a small learning because in my nearly 20 years of marketing, I've had big errors. I've had small errors, and I just wanted to start by sharing a very small one so that I don't scare your audience away. So I'm hoping that Lankwe and Victor will share bigger ones than what I've shared, so that I will now have confidence to roll out my big errors. But also, just before I stop talking, I also wanted to talk about, because the more I thought about this topic, the more I thought that it would be important to put failing in the right context. I think that the failing that I am wanting us to talk about, and I might be referring to, is not a moral failure. So when you go out of your way to dupe a company or to do something that is morally wrong, that's not a failing. That's a character flaw, and you need to deal with it. We are talking about when you're doing your best, but the outcome is not what you expected. When you're doing your best to do right, and the outcome is different from what you expected, the outcome is measured not as a success, but as a failing, then those are the sort of failures that I am wanting to reference when I talk about failure.
Thank you very much. I mean, the context is very good because it sort of sets an agenda for us. I mean, it sort of aligns with our thoughts, but it's good that you've further helped to sort of apply some bit of context. Mr. Folabi, I mean, I'm going to replicate just the same question so that we can start on the same footing. What was your recollection of your early blunders, if you can allow me to use that word, and what did you learn from it? I don't mind if you would tell us what are the circumstances that led to that failure. It would help us.
Okay, thanks for having me once more. And when I see the likes of Rosemary and my very, very big ego, Mr. Lankwe, I'm very careful to talk, because when people teach you and then you come and put them on the stool, initially I thought it was just going to be me and younger people. So when I saw them, I was like, this guy is setting me up, you know. And so if I'm stammering, it's because people like Mr. Lankwe are listening to me. So it's when someone is a friend to your mentors, it's always a big problem. Okay, so my marketing career, of course, do you remember I'm a pharmacist by training? And so I've done the Eco Hospital and the hospital things and pharmacist cancer and all that. And I was a salesman in a pharmaceutical company before I joined a multinational as I think a brand specialist, like an ABM. I think 05 thereabout, or late 05. And so from a young guy, energetic, and all that, with the pharmacy background, and was a star rep, so to say, when you're coming from sales. And coming to this head office thing, and in Ilupeju with Nestle, it was a lot of cultural shock, okay? And so there were plenty blunders, some big, some small. And then when I was thinking about it and I was stringing all of it together, I think it just boiled down to, one big learning around paying attention to details, okay? So one of the major ones I remember was the fact that I thought I could bamboozle my way through, and I remember this very important agency meeting. It was supposed to be insight. There's this, and we'll talk about it later on when we talk about the challenges in the industry. There's this thing that you've already been prepped. Agencies, people are coming, you're supposed to be superior to them. Your job is not to let them tell you nonsense so you can talk down on them. So, and unfortunately, I was managing not a female brand, but I was on a food brand. Food brand is tough, okay? For a young man, I was on Maggie. Maggie was 65% of Nestle. I had 3 other colleagues. Mizuko was overseen as the marketing director of Nestle then. So, we went into this media. It was a joint session. I think we were supposed to roll out a consumer promotion for Maggie. It was I think it was Maggie, and they were giving out cars. And so I had joint session of agencies. Insight was there, and the guys buying the media. I'm trying to remember. It wasn't Publicis. I'm trying to remember the name of the guys buying media. And they were there. They ordered to buy outdoor. It wasn't STB. I'm trying to remember the guys. We've done through a lot of evolutions then, and they were trying to talk about sites and everything, but the lousy thing was I was saying all the jargons, they were talking about gantry and Unipol and all the nonsense. I was just trying to re-echo when we were trying to talk about the materials. But when people are talking about pelmet and you're referring to a Unipol as a pelmet is like a tin plate out there for visibility. So everybody will stop, and then they'll take the page to explain to me that, no, that's not what we're saying. This image is not for, I said, no, it's for outdoor. No, it's actually a tin plate for a surface. This for deployment in trade. It's different from the outdoor. But the thing was, after the first or 2 goofs, I should have learned to keep quiet and, just listen to these guys. But I'm supposed to be, brand specialist, and then the specialist was behind it, so, and I'd been, prepped, when it comes to agency meeting, be in charge, so I said a lot of rubbish in that meeting, a lot of rubbish, and I remember after the meeting, of course, your friends, my colleagues, I was the youngest in terms of when I joined the team, all females, okay, so I remember for them, they had a good laugh, okay, but I can't forget that Mizuko also called me to our office then and said, look, you don't have to desperately try to prove a point, it's about that the minute you take a wrong step and you are perceived as empty, it becomes a reputational damage. That, you need to just calm down, listen a lot more. I know you are eager to want to show that you can perform. It's a bigger stage and all that. And then some coaching ensued. But every time I go back again, and once somebody mentions a Unipol, okay, the word uni makes it look like one. I did not know Unipol is supposed to be the biggest 20 by 60 outdoor thing and all that. So every time people start talking about that and gantry, someone was even calling me this afternoon, the first thing that goes back to mind was late 2005 when I sat in my first agency meeting. I wanted them to know that there was a new guy on the block who seemed to have all the answers to it, okay? A similar one was also when I messed up a cooking competition in Maggie Junior Chef. I was in charge of Maggie Junior Chef. So I was young. I was supposed to be a junior guy. So Maggie Junior Chef with New Era Foundation, Miss Tinubu's, I think, NGO or something. And I was supposed to be running the regional competition. And like I said, it all boils down to the details, schooling yourself and coming down. I was so excited, to be in charge. Incidentally, okay, when you're also the only guy amongst the females and you had to travel back to back weekend and everything, I was always eager. I was a salesman. What am I doing in the office anyway? Very boring. It's too much AC. I wanted to go to the field. But the error was I did not have a checklist. I did not pay attention to anything. I was eager to land there and prove that, I'm the newest brand specialist on the team. I've come to run Maggi Junior Chef in Aba. And I did not ship anything for the consumer promotion. Everything was in Lupeju head office. I bought the ticket only myself and landed there. And checked into a very big hotel, above even my budget. I didn't ask. You come and the people on the field like, hey, you have come. They put me one very big suit in there and I was in the hotel. And then the next morning, I strolled down for the consumer, for the Maggi Junior Chef competition. No cookers had arrived from Lagos because I forgot to ship them. No ingredients. It was supposed to be a rice and fish based themed competition. I did not order the fishes that were supposed to be fresh. I didn't ship nothing. So here I was early in the morning, strolled down, wearing branded Maggi t-shirt with a face cap. I'm representing the brand. All the salesmen are around me, waiting for the next instruction of what to happen. People are already at the gate, and there was nothing. I didn't know I had to set up. I practically didn't sit to ask nothing, okay? I saw what had happened in the regional final in Ibadan. Rather than sit and understand what my colleague Udo Abbasi had done and everything, I just assumed that the thing just materialized. After all, they are salesmen there. We are the guys in the head office. We are strategists. So my job was to just land, in the place and stay set up. I think it was Pat Nebo that was supposed to have been there. He also set his team and all that. The long and short of it was, I used all my money to buy fish and everything in Aba and all those things. And we had to shift the consumer, the cooking chef from, it was supposed to be 9. We started at 5 p.m., okay, to late into the night and all that. Major disaster, okay? And major disaster. And maybe if I was not a guy and we were arguing in the head office about why should a guy even be on Maggi, maybe I would not have had a job, okay? Because it was easy to get away with that. Look, it was a cooking competition. What was he supposed to know what to do? There's this way the debate will now go out in the why did we said it was supposed to be on Nescafe? Why would we even put it, So, I also failed ignorance that who says I even know how to cook? And we're supposed to be 4 boys and a girl. And of course I know how to cook, but you lean towards that part where people are on your side to say, how do you expect you to know what to do? But for me, it was a big learning, okay? And it was a big learning about understanding the discipline of execution, which is part of what I think as strategists and as marketing people, our strategy is as good as how they execute it. And I think execution is a major part of our job. These things just become ideas on canvas until we see the creation out there. So I think that also, if I look back, is one of the big errors I've had in my wonderful years of communication and all that. I mean, the other ones around interpreting wrong brief and when I first came out, I thought I was a superstar running an agency and getting to client place and presentation did not open and it was a pitch and all the directors were seated and I did not learn that I was supposed to at least have another backup and I was sweating for 30 minutes and everybody was looking at me and there was nothing to present. So a couple of that. Thanks for having me.
All right. I mean, that was very good. Thank you. I mean, I picked that sentence that you said with respect to the discipline of execution. I think by design, creative people are not the best executors. And I don't know if there's any statistical backing for that loose statement I just made. But creative people are oftentimes very impulsive. I mean, you need to be unstructured to be very creative. But when you now need to execute, you need to be very disciplined. You need to follow some fundamentals. You need to check the checklist. You need to ensure everything is done. And so maybe for us in our industry, perhaps our biggest challenge will be with respect to execution. All right, Mr. Moyele, instead of asking you the same question, I'll just extend it a bit further. I like where Mr. Folabi ended because he was talking about, misrepresenting or misinterpreting briefs. So let me just go into that segment, okay? And I know that, for a while now, you've been a clear leader in the marketing communication space, managing different agencies. And so I want to ask you, what has been your most painful pitch loss when you were pitching for a deal or for a brief? You reckon that you have it in the bag. You had assumed that your team had prepared so well. You expect that you're going to deliver best speech. You had all answers. You've considered all of the scenarios. What was your most painful? So I'm not asking what was your biggest loss. I'm just saying your most painful, meaning that you reckon that you should have won, but for some reason, the team fell flat. I would ask some sub-questions. I would like you to share with us the circumstances that led to the loss, very much like Mr. Afolabi did. Also, how did you, as a person and your team, how did you deal with the loss? What were the consequences of this loss? Was it just money? Did you lose friendships? Did you sack the guy? Did you fire him? Okay. And what were the general learnings? It would be nice for us to just pick out some of these things, if you help us.
Thank you, Larry. And as you're asking the question, I was just thinking in my mind, which one is probably the most painful, because, there have been painful ones, right? Every loss generally is painful, right? Especially when, you believe you need it because you're trying to build the business. But let me use one that comes top of my mind. And this happened to be a conglomerate company. We had tendered for it, and one thing led to another. I found that the head of marketing was kind of in our favor. So it was a friend of the house, friend of marketing. And then as he had presented the documents of the various companies, the group managing director stumbled on my name on the pitch document and said, "Oh, is this one of the guys' teams was pitching?" And I said, "Yes." "Oh, wow." So happened to be someone that I know. In fact, a person who probably just sees me in a way as a mentor in a certain faith-based situation. So here we are, group managing director, friend of the house, head of marketing, friend of the house. But it's a conglomerate and they had different MDs. So all we need to do, and all we're told, is just make sure that you are, first of all, you must put your best foot forward, but make sure you're among the top 2 by the end of the ratings, that if you're number 2, you'll get it. All right. So rallying around the team, let's put our best foot forward. But then there were some internal issues, lack of cohesion within the team. And by the time I came in to do a review of the work done, about a night or 2 before presentation, I knew we were in trouble because there was a disconnect between the brand management team, the strategy team, and the creative team, especially within the copy team. Okay. So the issue was, how do you harmonize? And here we are, it's 8:00 p.m. trying to see how do we harmonize and trying to give some kind of direction of where we should go. So I gave direction overnight, and look, guys, you need to work on it overnight. I didn't have enough time to do the final checks. So when you talk about learnings, about failings, one of the earlier things I also learned in my career is the attention to detail, but also follow through to the last minute, Anyway, we had done that. And so we went in for the presentation and all the MDs of the groups were there and all the top guys were there. But it was clear when we were presenting that this was not our best foot forward. In fact, the group MD came to attend the meeting. And when he came in, other MDs were wondering, why is he in the pitch meeting, right? But obviously he came because he had an interest. At the end of the day, we didn't get it because we turned out to be number 3 in the pitch, right? And therefore there was nothing the group MD could do. There was nothing the head of marketing could do. And for me, it was painful in a number of respects. Painful in the sense that we threw away what was a strong connection, all right? Because of a lack of cohesion within the team and people not aligning on what is the best way to approach the entire brief. For me, it was in a way a personal loss because for me it appeared like I had lost a bit in terms of reputation. Okay, because we had gotten that assurance. And because my name was on the pitch, the expectation was that it would turn out at least the minimum. And that did not happen. So for me, it's a painful loss because one, as far as I'm concerned, even if they didn't feel it that way, I felt I'd lost a bit of the goodwill, the reputation. And it just, so from when that happened, we went straight up to do a review of what went wrong and what steps could have been taken. And that actually led to certain major changes that we have put in place. And this incident, by the way, happened about 2.5 years ago. And since then, we have put in place certain measures to ensure we don't have a repeat, and we haven't repeated it. Part of it required, before any pitch, we'll do a dry run. We'll do a dry run, not once, twice, until I am satisfied that we are in a good place. So even if you do that and you don't win, I'm okay with it, because you know you've put in your best in place. So we put in also processes and all. And ultimately, one of the key people that was involved in that over a period of time left the business because we could no longer cope with the attitude that had led to that incident.
All right. I mean, that was very good. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask the same question to Mrs. Akpo. Your most painful pitch loss, managing the agency. What were the circumstances that led to that, and what was your biggest learning from it? And also, I mean, the consequences of that loss.
Larry, is that a question for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, Larry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. For you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Is that a question for me? Can you hear me?
It's for you. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you now.
The question is for you. Yeah.
Okay. You're asking me a question similar to what Larry has answered, which is
similar to what
Salampe.
Yeah. The question is, what was your most painful pitch loss? I'm not asking for the biggest loss, just the most painful. The one you assumed that you could win and it was in the bag, but eventually you didn't pull it off.
Okay. Similar to what Lankwe said earlier, I think every time you lose a pitch, it's painful. And I don't, perhaps because I'm new on the agency side, but every time I go for a pitch, I throw everything at it. So when I lose, oh boy, and I hate losing. It's very painful. But the one that comes to mind that's probably the most painful, it's probably not the biggest one, but you will understand when I explain to you why it was a really painful loss for me. And I actually learned a lot from it. It was a pitch we had for the Eco Hotel account. And so I've seen some of my team members on this call who went with me for that pitch. It was a closely contested one amongst several big experiential agencies. So after the first 2 rounds, we were in the last run of the pitch. So there were only 2 agencies left. So it was between EXP and one other agency. I was convinced we were going to win the pitch because following up from what the first round and the second round, they kept telling us that when it came to the ideation, that our ideas were the best, they were innovative, they were different from what everybody else had presented. So my confidence level was 95, 98% that we will get it. So in the last round, we didn't get it. Man, that's pain me. But a couple of things. First of all, I reached out to the agency who won the pitch and I sent them a congratulatory message. And they were shocked. And the gentleman said to me later on that this is the first time I'm contesting in a big pitch with another big agency, and they send me a congratulatory note saying, congratulations, well done. I felt that if anybody, and I knew it was based on merit, because if you know the quality of people who sat on that pitch, it was purely merit. So if they got that pitch over EXP, what it meant was that they didn't do a good job. They didn't walk away with it with their hands in their pockets. Because I know we fought like wounded lions to get that pitch. So what I did, I set up meetings with the owners of that pitch, because I really truly wanted to understand what we could have done differently. Like I said earlier, I don't believe that there's failure in life. You either win or you learn. Nothing is lost. If you miss learning from a lesson, you will repeat that class. You will repeat that class. So I set up a meeting with them and I asked them, what did we do? What could we have done differently? Why didn't we get this? So they explained to me. But in reality, what they explained to me was not what the learning was. It was when I sat back and started reflecting as a person. I went through the process and said, where did we miss it? Where did we miss it? It dawned on me. Why I'm pointing this out is that as young people, one of your strengths is in personal reflection. You must create time to sit down and think. If you don't do it, you can't go far. The difference between people who get far and people who don't are people who actually sit down and force themselves to think. It then dawned on me what's the trick we missed. This year, we had another big pitch, a massive one again, similar to the Eco Hotel size. And this same agency again. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention, the gentleman who leads that agency used to sit in this position that I sit in today in EXP.
Wow.
So he knows the books. He knows the agency well. So this year again, we were in another pitch where we went through the first round, went through the second round. At the third round again, the two agencies emerged to the top two. And we had a final presentation. I told my team, first to fail. We failed this thing the first time. We can't. And I know what we didn't do well the first time. So we can't afford to make the same mistakes twice. If you don't learn from your mistake, you keep that same place, you keep failing there. So we articulated what we didn't do well the first time. We used it as a lesson and said, we expect this to happen. We went back and we won the pitch. Because they used the same strategy they used for the Eco Hotel, thinking that, oh, this is what we expect ESP to do because they understand the ESP business. But we came from another angle because we knew that where they were expecting us to land with their knowledge of how the ESP business works. But we turned around and went another way and we won that pitch. It's not really the pitch that is the issue. It's what did you learn?
That's a very good one. Thank you so very much.
There are two sides of the same coin. Yeah.
Oh, okay. You're still speaking?
I was saying that success and failure are the two sides of the same coin. If you show me somebody who has never failed at anything, I will show you somebody who has never tried anything. If you keep trying, you will have several failures. But out of those failures, success would come.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Mr. Folabi, I will just move away from that line of questioning and go to, I'm going to have a mix. My question is over the years, your professional career, you would have made some errors, maybe professional, maybe personal. And this error would have greatly influenced your career. Either positively or otherwise. I like to say that the biggest professional error I've made was that I resigned in anger. I used to work somewhere and I led a group of my colleagues. We said, oh guys, let's go tell the boss that we needed them to increase our salaries. And they did. I was the one that led the guys and they increased their salary, but mine was the lowest. And I felt so offended that I resigned and I suffered for it. I'm sure because of the depth and length of career that you've had, there would have been some error that has affected your career. And it's possible that, the impact of this error could have actually been positive. Okay, we'd like you to, share this error with us, personal, professionally. What was the error and how has it impacted your career?
Okay, so I don't like the example you gave because incidentally that seems to be what the challenge was with my journey so far. Okay, and it had to do with how I left being in the corporate world to where I find myself. And that's why I was hoping you'd have given another example because people will think we have spoken. Incidentally, we haven't, okay? And somehow, I used to win Nestle, like I said, and along the line, you get punished at times for, I think, being good at what you do. So I think, okay? So I think Maggie was doing well. I was okay. It was my comfort zone, a couple of things, blah, blah, and all that. And Nestle wanted to do a major reorganization and restructuring, or as the case may be. We're introducing SAP into the business, wanted brand specialist or something. And gentleman, I forgot his surname, of blessed memory. And we had to go to Accra to do SAP. I was out, it was called Globe and all that. And I came back hoping that I'll come back to my comfort zone after being there for about 3 years thereabout. And I found myself in a new category. And they said, he grew Maggie in the North. He'll come to these accounts. And it was supposed to come to the dairy business. And Golden Month, they were betting on Golden Month to be able to, become the top pillar. There was a risk around, not having so many of those pillars then. And there was all this, I just wanted to stay Maggie. Life was fun. You go into every meeting as part of the business. Even the MD wants to sell Maggie, so you were important in every weekly meeting. Now, going to a smaller category and all that. But it was a tough category in terms of the way I was being managed, okay? And after we did that so-called Globe thing, they structured in such a way in which we now do not have the full marketing functions residing in the country. We now have to be reporting in what you call the matrix structure. So my original boss assisted somewhere in Ghana, overseeing a couple of countries, and I had an MD in Nigeria. And that clearly tells you that you're in trouble when the two of them are not aligned. So the two of them were constantly fighting each other, and I was at the middle, okay? And at times when people think that it was premeditated or I was fortunate to have moved, if only people understood the fact that my people was ready or before I decided to throw in the towel. Okay, so there was just nothing, even if it made sense. If the MD was on this side, my boss was going to be on the other side. There'll be a local Mancom meeting and my boss was going to be a market visit in Calabar. It just did not make sense. And so they take all the decisions, just trying to say that I was not there. Once they send it to their own regional meeting in Ghana, he will fight against everything that I was not carried along. And my career was already on the line and all that. And so I did something which I was working on launching. When I joined Golden Month then, it was one SKU. And one of the things I came up with was the fact that we just couldn't have one SKU. We wanted to do a bigger pack and a smaller pack. So the bigger pack was 750 grams. The smaller pack was 50 grams, which I launched. And it was a magic price point. This was supposed to be the high point of my career. I got it right, blah, blah, blah. Bonus, everything tied to it. And they started fighting about the price point of launching Golden Month. And they fought for 7 months.
Wow.
On 50 naira or 60 naira. That was the problem. 50 naira or 60 naira should be what they should launch. There's something called organic growth. My incentive, everything was tied to my rig. Rig is your real internal growth, which means that, when you launch a new product, your base is zero. So when you launch it and it's successful, it means that your real internal growth is higher because you have a zero base, okay? So everything was tied to it. I just had it up to here. And then, from the restructuring, my mentor, who was no longer my boss and all that, put my chair and sat in the office and said, so finally I'm a pharmacist. Then my wife had 3 outlets. And I said, look, I think I'm not going to be hungry, but I'm going to leave this place. But I want to leave this place confident that I knew what I was doing. These guys, I feel, are going to mess up my career. And she'll counsel, she's quite on the elderly side. And she thinks we have, our blood is too hot. And she was telling me all the things in her career, what she's gone through. But I say, well, this year doesn't understand what we're talking about. And I call her, Mama, look, listen. this young man has gone already. It's not that, and like I said, she was, incidentally, I think she was already on the directorship thing, but she was managing marketing services, not, directly with the business. And what did I do? Okay. I'm not sure whether this borders on character flaw, as the case may be. I'm not too sure, but maybe character flaw, looking back at hindsight, see what Rosemary said. So there's something called an SPC. SPC is a selling price calculation. So I told Mama, I said, Mama, I'm going. I have a few pharmacies I'll fall back on. That was, I think, around November. The guys were getting ready to go for their vacation. Luckily, two of them are expatriates, always fighting. They moved, and then when you leave, there was the finance control director. So two sets of people can sign an SPC. My business executive manager seated in Accra, in 23 countries, and the local MD, or myself managing the category and the finance control director. So I took it to him, and I said, there's an alignment in the region for us to launch this product as 50 grams. He says, fine. So I sign it, I give it to him. We sign and launch at 50 grams, which is what we were persuaded we will launch it. I launched the product, I resign, I go home to go and sit down. I was persuaded. The product did well, it grew, gave them fortunes and all that. But I was a point at which I was, at my wit's end. I mean, so yes, I had to come back for, I resigned, used all my leave and everything. And I walked away, I think, on the 15th of December. So they called me back, plenty conversations offered. But I remember Human Resource Director said, once you resign the next, we come back, they'll make lists of you, just don't bother. The truth, I really wanted to come back because I resigned out of anger. I couldn't even tell my late mom because, why do you leave Nestle? Are you okay? The gray and white card was enough. It just didn't make sense. The truth, looking back, I really was calling the bluff. I didn't want to resign, but I came back in January. They said, no, you can't resign like that. There was no succession plan. A few offers here and there. A few council officers, look, when you've done this, you don't get away with it. Think of something else, And the truth, I had not started looking for a job then. So I came back, had to do about 6 weeks handover in January because the holidays came. And so, okay, who do I think I had to name a succession, do a normal exit interview. And I think I had to stay another 6 weeks, there about 2 months. And a few other things even after I'd left because I was not living anywhere. And then I went back. Okay, first to look at the pharmacy, then of course they're reaching out, and that's how I birthed the agency. Incidentally, I was doing quite a lot of restructuring around their BTL as a project before I left. So normally all the things I learned, how I felt we should restructure their BTL, that was already on the laptop. I just moved on, and that was how we created GDA and everything. And of course, a few emotional sentiments and a few empathy about how the assumption of my career was truncated gave me a soft landing, okay? And incidentally, my first client also happened to be where I'd left. And it was basically around, maybe we didn't manage him well, But of course, as we were saying, come back, we have this plan for you. Somebody was, I had a few other friends, this multinational, they'll be smiling. The truth is that the next thing you'll be made an FSM in Gombe. And by then, it's difficult. Just leave when innovation was lauded. So that's how I took that career plunge. Yes, maybe character-wise, I decided to just sign it. Maybe I would have left without launching that product. But every time I go into trade and I see that 50 gram and I see it as a recruitment SKU and it survived 12 years, I'm thinking, was that the right thing to have done? Maybe not sure now, looking at the inside, but I did it then as a young man. And today I'm living with the consequences. And maybe I do not regret having left and transitioned because there's proof of value we've added to other brands, and we've managed quite a number of brands so far in the last 12 years, 11 years.
All right. That's a very good one. Thank you very much, Mr. Falabi. I should remind every one of us, including our mentors, that this session is actually being recorded. It's going to be uploaded to our YouTube page soon after the event. So I'm going to go to another line of questioning for Mr. Moyele. And this is interesting for me. It's interesting because, over the years, I've seen a few of your memoir on LinkedIn, and it's been interesting seeing the world through your eyes. You having a unique gift of being able to drive us back into the past to see how you were trying to navigate your career and make such a success of it. So my question is this: what is the best gift that failure has handed to you? Okay, this is tricky Okay, it's tricky, and I mean, I was very involved in this line of questioning because a lot of the time, very much like Mrs. Akpo said, people fear failure. People want to detach themselves from failure, forgetting that really failure is as elemental to success as many other things. Okay, and for many of us, I mean, for me personally, and I'm sure for many of you as our mentors, failure has probably given you your best gift. Maybe it's through failure that you got a new deal, you made a new pitch, you sent someone away, or you recruited a new guy. What was your best gift? That it was a consequence of failure that you received it professionally in your career. What would you call it?
Okay, so I'll answer that by telling a story and also answer it in a bit of a philosophical way. So let me tell the story of, and this really happened much earlier in my career. And so as you heard, I studied biochemistry, but before I studied biochemistry, I'd been in medical school, and I failed in medical school. Some people, I would say maybe I deliberately failed because I really didn't want to study medicine. But anyway, so, but anyway, I dropped out of medical school, right? And then one thing led to another, and I ended up in marketing. Now, in the first 6 months, I got into marketing at Cadbury Nigeria. So after 6 months of training, then the following 6 months, I had understudied a brand manager. So I was at the lowest rung, and it was called the marketing executive. So in fact, the word ABM, Assistant Brand Manager, didn't even exist then. Marketing executive, right, was right at the lowest rung. And I understudied for 6 months. Now, it appeared as if I had done well on that studying. So after 6 months, I was then asked to manage chocolate eclairs, if you remember, and then at some point asked to also manage the chocolate portfolio that Cadbury was trying to drive, right, being Cadbury. Now, they had struggled. So it was a senior brand manager that had been managing it. So they said, look, maybe we want a fresh young person who maybe new ideas. So I got involved in managing these 3 chocolate brands. One was called Fudge. Now, I don't expect anybody to remember this. This was in 1990. This was Fudge, Dash, and Chocolate Spread. So the first thing was, I didn't even know when the announcement was going to be made. So, I just heard an announcement at 2 p.m. on a Monday saying that I'd been appointed as marketing executive for chocolates. And I was scared because really, what did I know in marketing? I was fresh, 6 months really. And but I so felt calm down, maybe they think there's some good things I can do. So that was at 2 p.m. That was on a Monday. The following Tuesday was when normally have the sales and marketing meetings, operational meetings. And the sales and marketing director at the time, who later became the managing director, when he came to my bits, asked me, so, Omele, what's your action plan to resolve these problems? And I said to him, as you know, sir, I just got this appointment yesterday, sir. So I'm still reviewing things. And he said, what rubbish? What have you been doing since 2 p.m. yesterday? Now, of course, as you know, between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. the following day, there was also a night, all right? But as far as he was concerned, you got this major assignment and you slept, right? So anyway, after the meeting, I started consulting my seniors to ask them, look, so what do I do? Anyway, so I rallied around, and in 6 months, we kind of solved the problem a bit in terms of reducing the losses, because what was happening was a lot of product was going to expire. So I put in a few things, and maybe I did some things right, and I got promoted to full brand manager. So I actually skipped the ABM level and went to brand manager level. But you see, when that happened, I went to say thank you to him. This is the marketing director, by which time he had now gone on cross-posting to India. Sales and marketing director in Cadbury, India. Somebody else, an Indian, was coming. Well, I just went to say to him, look, thank you, sir, for this promotion. And he said to me, yeah. And look, all that crap you've done in the past 6 months, just make sure you do better. And I'm thinking in my head,
so how did I get promoted?
Get promoted for this. So I started learning that, yes, you effort at times and a bit of result is great, but I also learned that you cannot rest on your hours. And so that was just a part of the story. But then 2 months later, I was still trying to solve the problem to really establish the brands. But it came to a point where it seems as if we were throwing time, energy, and resources away. Now, the new sales and marketing director of the Indian and I was trying to retain the brands. Obviously, you're a brand manager, you're passionate about the brands. You want to keep the brands. But the decision was to, when we're having this debate, I kept on saying, I know, you can still understand my level. I've just about 1.5 years in the company, right? Fresher, management trainee. But here I am debating with seniors and everybody and saying that, look, I believe there's a gap in the market for chocolates, right? But the question, and some people have heard me say this before, the sales marketing director, Vinita, says to me, yes, there might be a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap? Okay, there might be a gap in the market, but is there a market in the gap? And what she was saying in essence is there money to be made in this? Now, this was a Friday, we debated, and the decision was taken to kill the brands. Now, so imagine you are the brand manager. You have been promoted on account of, look, we think you can do this and resolve these problems. You're just joined, you're just barely 1.5 years in the company's time from management trainee, okay? And they're killing the brands, 3 brands that you're managing. For me, I felt I had failed. I had not succeeded in delivering the mandate. And this was a Friday. So you're killing the brands I'm managing. Next thing is, so what job do I have? Right? And that was my concern. I didn't think, what job do I have? So I was really worried for a job. So Saturday, Sunday, I had no job. Monday morning, I had no job. Right? So as far as concerned, I had failed. I was wondering, so where are they going to push me to? All right? Only for an announcement to come. No, they didn't inform me. 2 p.m. Monday. So I always think 2 p.m. Mondays in my career have been quite important. So 2 p.m. Monday, a notice goes out. Because you see, there had been a vacancy for the Bonvita brand manager, because who was managing it was a senior brand manager, a group person who had managed before and was still managing it. But obviously, the Bonvita brand manager role, track record is for senior people, experienced marketing people, and all that. All right, so it was never in view. But 2 p.m. on Monday, without even the person who was managing Bonvita being informed, a notice went out to say that I had been appointed Bonvita brand manager. That was unheard of, literally unheard of. I got calls from senior managers saying, you're in trouble now. It was unexpected. People actually said, how could they promote this upstart to this level, right? But so for me, my confidence came that if the Indian lady, Vinita, who had only observed all of us for 3 months, who make the call that even though this guy didn't succeed in his mandate, we see what he has tried to do, we think he can manage the Bonvita brand. So for me, that failure on the chocolate brands opened up the door to manage the biggest brand that Cadbury had, and at that time, probably the biggest brand in Nigeria. Wow. Amazing. So for me, that was, and obviously having become that brand manager of Bonvita, it just changed the trajectory of my career. And by the way, on that Monday night, I went on my knees asking God, please take away this cup from me. It was how big Bonvita was. But that, I think, was probably one of the biggest gifts that failure in my career had given me.
Gifted you. I mean, that was good. Thank you. Thank you so very much for sharing. We'll be done with the first segment of the questioning. But I'll quickly go to Mr. Folabi, a very short one, to take the same question I just given to Mr. Moyele. What would you consider to be the best gift that failure has given you? I will ask Lankwe and Mrs. Ekpo just one final question, then we'll go to the industry issues. But I'm now on your case. What would you say is the best gift that failure has given you professionally?
When I look at what the best gift has been, with the experience I had in my brand management career, and quitting without having I mean, so to say another job or something like that. But today, in the last 11 years, I haven't found myself to have offered a platform, mentored, coached, given opportunity to, I can say, thousands of people. I think the challenge with BTL is that beyond your direct reports, you have an army of contract people that you're talking to, mentoring and everything every day. And I think that for me is the greatest opportunity. I mean, so first, I mean, it should be good also to clarify 6 months after I learned, I mean, started the agency and we're barely trying to even sort ourselves out. I got like 4 or 5 of us Red Bull. By then, they had been offering town criers. They wanted an MD and a couple of things. But I was already on this road, 3 to 6 months, and I said, am I really going to just abandon this and go and take up a job in Red Bull? Red Bull wants a marketing exec for Nigeria and all that. Okay. So I think what is thrown is just the opportunity to have worked with people. I mean, in the last 11 years running the agency, I've learned because people teach you. There are quite a lot of flaws you have in leading, managing people. Remember that I wasn't prepared. I was managing just maybe a team of 2. When I was in Nestle, one of them was even a copper. So it wasn't a team of 2 of marketing people. But here was, I had to now begin to build a team from 4 to 8 to 12 to over 100 full team and cross functions and creating systems. Those were things that I could never have thought I would have been able to create or put together or structure. And so what the greatest opportunity or blessing is brought is ability to meet wonderful people, work with people, win with people, cry with people, understand leadership is not just about the numbers. The people are more important than actually the numbers or the growth in the agency. I think the perspective that it's actually giving me about life, business, and people is the biggest, because I'm in a people business. You can't do anything without the people. We're not selling products, which I used to sell in Maggie or Golden Mon. Here, you're selling people's skills, their intellect, their abilities, their attitudes. And the bigger you need as an agency, the more you need the right people, the right attitude to be able to win. So for me, that I think is the biggest learning. They made me know who I was. I saw where my character flaws were, my gaps. I saw where I needed to improve in leading and managing people, which I think is the greatest challenge. And so that for me, it sums it up.
Thank you so very much. I'll go to the question like I said earlier. Mrs. Ekpo, this question is about a very difficult experience we could have had. So what's your most difficult client experience? How did you deal with this experience? And what were the circumstances that led to it? And I mean, maybe finally, what were the learnings you picked? Your most difficult client experience, your most challenging. What was it? I hope you heard me, man. Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Did you
I'm
hear
sorry.
my...
Yes, I heard your question, and I was speaking on mute.
Okay.
So your question is the most difficult client experience. I must say there have been several. And I'm surprised you picked me to ask that question. You should have asked Victor that question. If you remember earlier on when Victor was speaking, he said something around when you asked him about his first failure when he started his career. He mentioned how he was attending an agency meeting and he had to prove that I'm the new kid around the block in the block.
Yeah,
I know it all.
He was the member.
That is my having moved from nearly 20 years on the client side and moving to the agency side. I find, and in fairness to a lot of clients that we work with, most of them are great to work with. But I mean, life is never 100%. Every once in a while, you find that client from hell who will look at me and say, what do you even know? Are you not just an agency? When I tell you to jump, just jump very high. Who are you? When I speak, keep quiet. At that point, I say to myself, I just remind myself, I say, Rosemary, be humble. Jesus did not consider equality with God as something to be as an advantage. He humbled himself. I have had a few clients who have looked me in the eye and said, what do you know? What do you even know? You're just from the agency. When I tell you to keep quiet, just keep quiet. If I ask you to jump, just jump up. I just do like this. I close one eye and I remind myself, Rosemary, be humble. Be humble. Then I remind them, I say, it's my job to make your job easier. If every time I hear a client say, oh, there are no good agencies in Nigeria, I have to go to South Africa or Kenya to go and get an agency, I say to them, if as a client you worked with 4 agencies, 5 agencies, and you're complaining, perhaps you need to look inward. Perhaps the problem is not with the agencies. Perhaps you need to look at yourself. So what have I learned from that? What I've learned is just keep your head cool. Keep cool, even when it looks like you're holding the short end of the stick. Keep cool. But I've also found from several experiences that I've had working on the agency side that when you're a solution provider and you're keeping your cool, clients turn around and say, oh, I want to work with that agency because regardless of how hot I blow, they are cool. They take the heat, they still provide the solution. That has been my experience. And I'm not even trying to pretend like it's always easy. It's not always easy. Sometimes I go into a room and I scream, yeah, strong. But then you come out and you're smiling and you're doing like, okay, all right, we can do this. Just let it go, we can do it. So that's keeping myself humble and reminding myself that things don't always work the way I want them to work. But in the midst of that, keep yourself cool. For me, is the way I handle such things.
All right. Thank you very much. I would have wanted to ask Lankwe, but I realized that our time is going. And so let's just move over to the industry side. I mean, we have much shorter questions to take, but I would like to open up the lines for questions at about 6:30, so we can take questions for about 30 minutes. So we have about 19 minutes to sort of discuss, 2 or 3 critical questions for me. So I want to ask Lankwe this question, but I want him to look at this question from his professional view. So what would you say is your best example of how a brand turned failure around? It doesn't have to be your client. I'm just saying in your 30 plus years experience, and I researched you sometime last year. I think now, you have a good, healthy 3 decades plus experience. What would you say is your best example of how a brand, they navigated the turbulent waters of failure and they turned it around? It could be that a campaign failed and they bounced it over and they succeeded. It could be that it was the product that was launched terribly. The product failed and they picked it up and it became a success. Or it could be that their business strategy just went into the waters and they re-strategized and they picked up. What would be your best example? Just take us on that journey. Let us learn from your beautiful experience.
Okay, my best example, for those who know, will be Bombita brand, okay, because I spent many years, but it will be a long story. So let me use another example, right? Because the Bombita story will be a long story. But let me use an experience in Kenya. Okay, so I was in Kenya for a few years, and the biggest category that Kenya had, the Kenyan business had, is the cocoa products category. So they also had Bombita in Kenya. They had Cadbury's drinking chocolate. They had a brand called Cadbury Cocoa. But Bombita was very, very small in Kenya. So the entire category in Kenya, when I joined, had decline in volume sales year on year for 4 years, year on year. So you can understand how the business situation was where your major category had declined year on year. So the company was in trouble, real trouble. And part of the reason why I was moved there was trying to support, but it was in trouble. So the key issue was to do a SWOT analysis to say, look, what needs to be done on this brand? What is causing this decline? So we did a lot of research, stripped the entire elements of the marketing mix. And by the way, this also was more or less the same principle that we used for Bonvita in Nigeria. Okay, but like I said, the Bonvita story is a bit of a longer story. So we stripped all the elements of the marketing mix. We saw that there was no major issue with the product, but we did see that packaging seemed to have an issue. And while we're going through this process, a local upstart had launched in plastic, and we've seen sales improve. So our situation was even worse. So we were not only losing volumes, we were also losing market share. Okay, the business has done that, and that was not acceptable, right? It was a real major issue. So when we stripped that, I realized that, look, we probably need to do a relaunch. And also communication had not been effective over the years, all right? So we realized that there were two major issues to address: packaging and communication, as well as also drive distribution, but keep product. So the decision we took, having done the SWOT analysis, was change packaging and have fresh communication. And this involved doing a lot of research. So we did a lot of market research to try and understand what the issues were to get to this point. And market research confirmed to us that consumers believe that that plastic was better for them than tin packaging. So you can imagine that these Cadbury brands have been in tin packaging forever, 40 years. So we took the decision to change to plastic packaging, redesigned, also changed the aesthetics, and launched into some really, if I may use the word, sexy looking plastic bottles. And because consumers had told us that they considered plastic as superior in their minds to tin, we also decided to put the price up. So we actually, to create that imagery of premiumness, of extra premiumness on the brands, and then created new advertising materials to just push up the issue of the premium perception. And we launched this, drove distribution. And brands that had been on decline 4 years every year and losing money, within 2 years had doubled sales within 2 years. Now, the interesting thing that made it more interesting was that the cost of plastic packaging was actually cheaper than tin packaging. But because consumers had told us from a feedback perception-wise that plastic was in their minds better and it would create differentiation, we could put the price up. So imagine what happened. Again, let me repeat, 4 years decline in sales consistently. Just changing the packaging, having fresh communication, increasing price, sales volumes went up significantly. And because of that, also increased price, and the cost of manufacture had gone down because of the plastic, gross margins, profits went up significantly. So it was a massive turnaround along with the fresh communication. And I always say as a joke that year and the following year, my bonuses were good.
Out of this world.
Well, not out of this world, but they were good. So that's an example that I can give.
Yeah, I mean, that was very good. Yeah, about 30 more minutes. Let me see if I want to ask the same questions or just push. Mr. Falabi, I mean, I'm going to be asking you, okay, yes, so I can ask you this. What would you consider, I mean, in your view, to be the biggest industry fail? And this is the direction of my questioning, okay? What would you say has happened, in your view, in the industry that has not advanced our practice? It has rather made us come backward. Is it the emergence of a group of people? And I mean, please, you can take all liberties to ensure confidentiality. But this is why I'm asking this question, just so that for very many of us in the room, we can pick up ideas and learnings about what we consider to have been the challenge of our industry. So I'm asking, would you say in your view, are the reasons for our biggest fails in the industry? Was it a policy? Was it a procedure? Or is it a recent trend that sort of moved us backward? I mean, that is one. The second would have been, the second sub question would be, this fail that we now have industry-wide, what would you consider to be the cost and consequences of it? I mean, one of the things I think is that, would you say, for example, that specialization, has it helped? Or, I mean, generalization, has it helped? That kind of line of reasoning. And the final sub-question would be, what do you think we can do as an industry to get out of this circle of not really progressing like we should? It's a tricky question, but I hope you understand, unless you want me to take it again. Mr.
Yeah, I do. It's just that my thoughts are everywhere, and I'm trying to just pull them all in. I think for my very big example, Mr. Langbe, Rosemary, and myself, we're fortunate people because we sit on the edge of the coin. The best side of the coin is always on the edge, okay? It's not head or tail. There's always an edge, which means it gives us the opportunity to look at both perspectives. We've been on client side and we've been on agency side. So it gives a balanced perspective, okay? And, you know, I just borrow leave to what Rosemary had said about you get to a place and they tell you, what do you know? And, you know, it's worse when it's people that were, their brands were struggling. They were trainees when you were a senior manager. And now you are clients. They happen by error of omission or commission to be marketing directors. And they say, what do you know? And you're tempted to remind them that, what brand were you actually managing? You know, you're tempted. Then you remember they need to sign the PO. And then you sell your price. So I think we deal with a lot of that. I think the people that struggle the most on this side are people that have been brand managers before. And you know, brand management is about cohorts. So you know your mates, you know those in 2005 to 2007, you know the ones between 2000. So you know the people that were in your generation. So when you get there, you remember, you know, a few people who just had brand management when they didn't meet the rich Ochos of this world and the Nescau and blah, blah, blah. And they wake up and they, so we deal with all that. But let's come to what you're talking about. And I'll be speaking from that perspective when I come to the industry, because I think the industry has its own frustrations in terms of how it's structured. And I think I and Rosemary will even feel a bigger pinch because the BTL is even worse. It's extremely fragmented, very low level of professionalism. And we're just struggling to see how they can create some level of structure in there, okay? And coming from a multinational is a big deal. And so what are the things I see about the industry? I think the narratives long before now, in which it's not very collaborative. It's more seen as a subservient. Remember I started by it, you're already prepped to believe that you're superior. And I think I got a private chat from Winnipeg. Winnipeg used to be my client service person. I think she was very smart, extremely smart. I suspect maybe older than me and Visa, I can't remember. But our job was to make her life very miserable. And I think we did a good job of that. You know, she's on the call down because you already have this mindset that what can agency know? And I think it's a big deal that needs to be solved. I see quite a number of brands struggle, give them direction, they go in the wrong way. They don't just, you manage quite a number of brands, so you can borrow learnings. They manage just this one brand where they don't see beyond the researches, people don't even go for field visits anymore. And there's this very strong feeling that they suddenly are masters of strategy. So I think that issue we have around being an agency means that you're subservient, you have no clue about what you're doing. I don't know where the narrative started from. Remember, I'm just about, in this marketing comms world, less than a decade there, but I'm less than 2 decades. So I'm not sure where it started from, but it's a big deal. And we need to begin to have the veterans in the industry begin to change the narrative, okay? And we need to begin to, it's going to be like the HND BSC kind of conversation where people think that because you're on the agency side, you suddenly are disadvantaged. You have an HND, even though you are both marketing colleagues. Because I've been at both sides, I can tell you at times you have the best of brains on the agency side. I've seen it, okay? I've seen, and I qualify to say because, hey, I was a brand manager. I've seen people on this other side whom, if they come to my agency, so to say, they're not even likely going to be able to do well. And yes, we've had a couple of people from clients that come to agency side that didn't do well. Okay, so I think we need to be able to deal with that dichotomy, and I think it naturally seeps into the people on the agency side, an inferiority complex that affects their level of creativity, which they need to deal with. Okay, because if you've been on the other side, what do you want to tell me really? I've seen a bit, okay? But for quite a number of people who start their career at the agency side, they have this strong inferiority complex. They are not self-assured. They think they are not getting it right. And it's reducing the depth of expertise in the agency side because, you know, they just assume that no matter what I do is not good enough. Let me just go there, listen to clients. Whatever client says, I can't think. I suspend my reasoning. Even if they are talking rubbish, carry it and go and execute. And they think that's the best way to be a client person or a project manager and all that. So that robust conversation and debate, which normally should happen, you know, it's not happening. And I think that is the greatest flaw I see. The best of our strategies, I think, are on this side. I do not think you're the best managing a brand for 5 years. Okay, but the best of our strategies managing multi-level brands. You're talking about a hotel brand. You're talking about diapers that Rosemary has managed. I think compared to when she's coming from Suntory, I mean, we should have this conversation over coffee one of these days. She's managed quite a lot of other brands, and the experience is totally different. All manners of things, not just Lucoz's and Suntory. She's dealing with a crazy whole lot of things, and from services to, you know, and I think there's a lot of expertise in here not recognized. We need to help own and drive that narrative. Second part, so I don't take too much of your time, like I said, it's the whole industry thing that we need to begin to work at. The second part also is that I think as the other side of the coin, we also struggle with a lot of professionalism with our colleagues. Bear in mind that they're dealing with an inferiority complex. They already think they are not good enough. They don't measure enough. They can't know it. I'm not client. You know, I always get upset when somebody even does the wrong thing and they say client said. And I said, what do you mean client said? This just doesn't make sense. Let's have a conversation. And most times I pick my call, I dial and, oh, sorry, we didn't know. And I said, why can't you just tell them? This just can't work, you know? But there's this funny one, is the client that said, is the client that said. And I said, so we have this inferiority complex that does not even allow our people to demonstrate the level of professionalism that is expected from them. If there's no value we're bringing to the table, remember this is a global phenomenon, the origin from Nigeria. Nobody's going to sign on agencies. Agencies change the photos on brands. So we need to come from that part that we're bringing value to the table. Many of our colleagues do not see it that way. Many should change themselves. I think many create so much red ocean and is so fierce and at each other's jugular. And by doing that, they bring the whole category and industry down because they sell themselves cheaply. They take away that level of value to the table and instead assume everything is about relationship. Relationship is part of every business all over the world, but relationship is value add. It's not the business. The business is about expertise. And agencies cannot be built on relationship. It has to be built on value add and you know, bringing solutions to the table. I'll round up by saying the other part also is I think agencies are also not innovative enough. Clients by the nature, and like I said, I think the three of us have been on that side. I think by our nature, we innovate a lot more around the products. We start with a lot of things. You are a brand manager responsible for so many things. You hardly have time to think. Okay, you are doing this product you want to launch, and you have your pipeline for like 18 months. That's what you are chasing. Then you go for a lot of meetings that are not adding so many value. So you have to deal with all that. But I think agencies also, we're not very fast at innovating and bringing future thinking. You know what's happening all over the world to brands. It's more about take EXP's document, remove the back, put GDM on top, and resubmit it. And you know, these are the practices that take away the reputation, you know, and it's not that originality anymore. I remember I was in a conference last year, brand conference, and I was sharing with my colleagues who were seated like, look, what I forecast and what I see by virtue of work I do and other caps I wear is that the landscape of BTL was going to change, and you know, the way we've done road shows and all that. And my colleagues on this stand, they took me to pieces. What do you know? You know, it's always been like that. It will be like that forever. November last year, March this year, BTL industry. Comatose.
Near collapse.
I can send the presentation. It was all about what are the things you should be doing. We should be educating clients to say the world has moved to data. It's about analytics. It's about what are the things they need to do for them to continue to keep assuming as if we bring no value. If all you need to do is carry a brief and go and hire Usher. I mean, really, we should be doing better things with our time. I mean, at least go to a school and be teaching. Okay, so we need to take the business beyond just respond to those briefs and be bringing ideation there. I don't see a lot of that, and I think it reinforces the narrative and the position that agencies do not bring so much to the table. So we need to have, because this is a group of strategies, look globally, create new things, see how marketing engagement and and marketing activities, or how agencies are bringing value in the future, and bring a lot of things down there. I will end by saying, let's not think that those people are out there are a lot better than us. The fintech in Nigeria, I make bold to say, I play in that space, is a lot more advanced than even in the US. Ask anybody who's in the fintech industry. And they've moved very fast. They've owned the place. So we cannot think and think, oh, this is just happening in the US. But there are ways in which they're doing a lot of marketing and engagement, and analytics and data and connectivity that we need to bring to these consumers who are consuming global media and global content. And until we begin to think like that also as agency and strategists, and stop fighting ourselves and talking about history of how people were jumping in the league in 1942 and all that, and saying what should be the future, clients will continue to disrespect us. Clients will continue to, talk to our people in condescending ways. Our people will naturally continue to have low self-esteem. Their creativity will be muted, and it becomes a vicious cycle. I hope I've been able to summarize a bit.
I mean, that was a long but very, very incisive response. I mean, you looked at it from different perspectives. I like that you spoke to a seeming inferiority complex that some segment of the industry appears to have, and what exactly we all need to do to be able to rise up to the occasion. I mean, for everyone in the room, we're just right about the point where you can participate actively. If you have questions, as I suspect some of us will do, you can either post the question directly in the chat room, or just indicate by raising of your hands. I will call you to quickly ask your questions. When you do, I would appreciate if your question is specific to a particular mentor, please mention their name just so they can take notes and respond to your question appropriately. Just before the questions come in, I have just one question for the three of you. Maybe Langwe goes first, and you can go in any form until the question comes in. It's a general question, and I think that it will be speaking more to the audience in this point. So the direction of the question is about murky waters. I call them murky waters because murky waters are waters we don't want to swim in, we don't want to step in, all right? And by murky waters, the question is, what are the things to run from? I mean, what are those attitudes that can help us to embrace failure and extract meaningful learning from it? I mean, so the first sub-question is about attitudes. The second one is, what are those guiding principles that make success more repeatable from your own experience? What are those habits or principles over the years that make success more repeatable and failure less recurring? And the final question is, what are those predominant success habits that leading brands and their agencies have demonstrated over the years? I mean, you can pick any segment and just try and answer it. I would plead that you can take any of the sub-questions and just try and kill it in 1 or 2 minutes, just so that we can take as many questions as possible. So if there are any questions, please raise up your hands. I'll start with Langwe, then I'll go to Mr. Seko before I come to Mr. Folabi. Just 1 or 2 minutes. What are those habits, principles that you would say can make success more repeatable, make failure less recurring, help us to learn more from failures and the likes? Langwe, over to you, sir.
Okay, so thank you, Larry. I think what's key, one of the things that's key for me, and Rosemary spoke about it, is this issue around humility. You see, when you are humble, you will be able to take learnings much faster from failure. So what I've found that humility is a big piece. And even though I had learned to take failure very early in life, like I said, I dropped out of medical school half deliberately, but I learned very quickly that when failure occurs, what really matters is not the failure, but how you respond to the failure. And the key part of that is humility. So I think one, humility is important. And tied to that is, don't think that you know everything. It's also tied to humility. So when you make mistakes, readily accept that you've made a mistake and take responsibility for those mistakes. Even when it happens not to be your direct responsibility, own it and take the learnings learnings from it, and then act. So the issues of repeatability and how success becomes, I think I was going to use one word, it would be about humility. There's also the other element of patience, knowing that, as I say, Rome is not built in a day. Learn to forgive yourself also if you make some genuine errors. Patience is a process. Growth is a process. So don't expect that you're going to just move from, necessarily, there are overnight successes, so to speak, at times. But generally, overnight successes are many nights of sweat or failures. So patience, humility, and patience would be two key things that I have learned over time. And it's a growing process. It's a growing process. You keep on learning about depths of humility. You keep on learning about depths of patience in career. So that's what I would say in summary.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Apple, what would you consider to be, things to embrace, things to run away from?
There are two areas I would like to speak to. The first one will be, you asked what are the things that will make success more repeatable.
Yeah.
I think one thing that we all need to imbibe and learn and keep doing is to learn to ask why. If you fail, ask why. If you succeed, ask why. Same way that you learn from your failures, you should also learn from your successes. Ask why. Don't say, oh, we met our target. Phew, end of story. Why? Learn to ask why. If you learn through every single time. My children, the first question I always ask them is why. If I say, are you supposed to go to the left or to the right? Any answer they choose, I'm still going to ask why. So if we learn to ask ourselves why, we will be able to filter out those things that made us either to succeed or to fail. Therefore, we will either be able to avoid future failures or be able to repeat the successes. So don't take your successes for granted. Don't take your failures for granted. Ask yourself why. Take the learnings, both from the successes and the failures. The second thing I just wanted also to add on the murky waters question that you asked, what are the things to run from? I think when you talk about things to run from, it's also really, really important that we speak to ourselves and you young people that don't be afraid of failing. Don't be afraid of failing. I was saying earlier that if you show me someone who has never failed, I will show you somebody who has never tried anything. You have to be comfortable to fail. Be comfortable to fail. Fail, learn from it, and then try again. And he's saying so, I also must encourage us to allow others the opportunities to fail. You can't fix the problem of the world. You have to be large-hearted enough to allow others around you the opportunity to learn from their own errors. Sometimes I see clearly. I tell myself that the question I always ask myself as a leader, when I foresee that a member of my team is about to cause themselves collateral damage, I ask myself, is this something they will be able to recover from? Yes. Is this something that will completely grind this business, bring this business to its knees? No. I will let them make the mistake. Go ahead, make it. You learn from it. So let's not be afraid. Just because failure is a bit of a stigma does not mean. The truth is that whether you like it or not, you're going to have instances where you will fail. But Lankwe mentioned something that is really important. Learn to forgive yourself and say, okay, all right, I didn't do this one so well. What did I do well? Learn from it, but try again. Try again. Don't be afraid to fail. Dream big. Victor is someone that I met in the course of my career, but he's a very inspiring young man. I heard his story, and when my team were, I had the opportunity of asking him to pitch for a job, his team to pitch for a job. And my team just kept raving there, GDM. I say, who is this GDM? I remember saying, I want to see the human being called GDM. GDM is just the name of a company. Who is the person? I want to use my eye and see them. Don't give this job to somebody that will now start looking for who the person is. And within 15 minutes of my asking that question, this young man arrived in my office and said, I'm the one. I said, oh, wow. I was humbled, both by his humility, because he could have said, who are you? I make more money than probably your company makes. And he would never have come for the meeting. But he ran to the office and said, Rosemary, here am I. And he sort of forged a relationship with, I have a huge respect for him. His story inspires me a lot. And I think it's a story that young people should learn from. You may fail in what, I just saying this reminds me of another story that involves him and Lakwe and myself. And it also borders on failure. I remember my last job where it felt like I was going up against the powers that be. And I kept saying, guys, just because we are Nigerians doesn't mean that everybody in Nigeria is a thief. So, and I was victimized for trailing a road that was an unpopular one. But it was something I strongly believed in. I didn't believe that every Nigerian is a thief. And if you come from outside the country and they just assume that every single Nigerian is a thief, I had big issues with that. And because of that, I had a huge running battle with the company. But when I look back today, I say to myself, should I have done something different? Should I have taken a different position? Because that led to my leaving the company. Should I have just kept quiet like so many other people who were in the same meeting where Nigerians were being accused? All Nigerians are thieves, all Nigerians are criminals, all Nigerians are armed robbers. And I said, excuse me, I'm a Nigerian and not all Nigerians are thieves. I am not a thief. Not all Nigerians are thieves. And everybody else kept quiet, but I was then singled out for being the one who spoke up, victimized, frustrated, all sorts of things happened, and then I had to leave the company. When I look back, I ask myself every time, knowing what I know today, would I have done the same thing? My answer is always yes. At the time, it looked really tough. It was embarrassing to me that at such a senior position, I was being asked to leave a company because of a position that I took. But I knew I was right. So I do remember that it also involved me calling Victor and saying, Victor, this same job that we have issued to you, I have been accused of collaborating with you or doing something that is unmentionable. But you know the real story behind this story. And it's one of the things that I actually don't look at it as a failure. I look at it as a learning in my life. And if I walked that path again, I will do exactly what I did before, which is to stand up for what's right. And don't be afraid of failing. Don't be afraid of being the odd one out in the room. You will look back and you'll be glad you did.
Thank you so very much. I mean, we have a couple of questions, more than a couple actually. So like I was saying earlier, I mean, I would like us to just keep it 1-2 minutes because we have them back to back to back, and I want us to take as many of the questions as possible. So I'll quickly ask Mr. Folabi this. I mean, this is a poignant question for me, but from TK. So he's saying that, I mean, his agency does a great job. He believes they do a great job, okay? But there's a gap, and the gap is the networking gap, okay? So for an head of agency who technically they are very competent, but they don't do so well with respect to networking, how would you advise that they bridge that divide? Because this is a challenge today that is probably taking out or that is depriving them from a few businesses. That's one. The second is, how do you run a business that is ethically upright in an environment where people want to take cuts? Okay, please, can you try and kill this in 2 minutes or thereabout, just so that I can go back to Lankwe and come back to Ms. Apple? What would be your advice?
Yeah, 2 things. So I'll start by saying, and you see, the best way to give these examples is to talk about also yourself. I mean, I was coming from client side, client side came out, and I was told also the only way to grow a BTL agency is be able to network. Okay. Unfortunately, the definition of networking, and this is not me being very sanctimonious, I also was not good at drinking. I also was not good at smoking. I didn't know the clubs in Lagos. I was just one very local Baptist boy and all that. So I didn't look like a typical agency material, okay, to lead an agency. But I had something that I think was important. I read a book about the average, your law of average, and I knocked so many doors. I'm not sure the company I've not pitched in this country to. I've knocked every door. So back to it is to say, I mean, do not think it's about your networking alone. I think when you do good work and people do referrals, all marketing people, the most credible source of advertisement is word of mouth. I mean, Rosemary that I finally met, I've heard of her from different places. People have said many things. Nothing had ever happened. I knew when she was in Coke. But she was sitting in a meeting. They were talking about a particular competence. My name came up. And then she said, I didn't know the person. I heard it. Someone said, I said, come, is it true you've been in this market you've not heard of? I said, I know her. She doesn't know me. I drove down. So what I'm trying to say is that there was a competence they were looking for, and they asked for that competence. So I think maybe it's not just about networking alone. It's good to know people, but I think when you do good jobs and your jobs are out there, and it's not you saying you do good jobs, clients telling you do good jobs, and they see the hunger, the passion, you make mistakes and errors, and you have the humility to take them, and you're curious enough, I think this ones will speak. The days and the times of handing a ground in all the lounges and all the clubs and all the pubs because the marketing director will come in. Now we even have more female marketing directors. So the thing has changed. You know, now there are more females everywhere. It's a gender balance. So if you are thinking you hand in all the lounges, they are at home cooking and watching Netflix. So yeah, it's not. Things have changed. So the narratives of, oh, you're an agency head, you need to be in every. I think that time is gone. The other part is, Mizuko told me something when I was leaving, and you know, she, and I'm just to encourage you. I think I read his explanations. We sat down. She said, "Look, be very careful with your expectations from people." Like I said, she was a mentor I chose, and I just enjoy picking her brains. We had some wonderful time together. So when I was going, I mean, she sat and said, "You know, be careful your expectation from people. Your friends are the ones that will give you the least jobs, and they'll give you the highest amount of stress. 11 years down the line, that's the truth." The challenge you're going to have most times is, I believe, when you bring your business down to the level where it's about, and that's why I emphasize the issue of a relationship, where it's about cuts and deals and all that. Forgetting about even forget about the ethical part of it. It will destroy your agency. Experience that. I know that. Let me tell you what will happen. Every time your people, your team thinks that they already have won an account, their creativity drops, their ability drops, they don't perform, they think it's already won. You find out that your people now begin to take the agencies about, oh, it's settlement and all that, boss, to get things done, and you destroy the agency. How do you run an ethical business? Just do good work. Just do very good work. I'll end by sharing again another story. I think those stories make them real, so it's not just about talking. There are four of us. I mean, I did a government program in 2018-19. Okay? And when we're doing it, it was government project. Everybody expected. It was trader money. I mean, I knew how we structured it from chicken money, blah, blah, blah. The rest is history and all that. Empower, trader money, Jeep, and a couple of things. People expected we should not do the work. I did not understand it. Okay? How it was a federal government job. It was about, they wanted to share. They didn't expect the job to be done. I lost every friend on that project. From people that introduced to pitch, everybody. Guess what? Government went, I mean, putting vice president on their activation rig like Milo and all that. We did all that. Humanitarian affairs, they summoned everybody, they had embezzled money. I was the only one that was not called. DSS went to every office, they forgot to come to my office. Long and short, they canceled everything. COVID fund wanted to start again. They decided every other person was not going to be used. 2 weeks ago, I got a call again from BOI and the vice president says, oh, there's this COVID fund thing. We want to redo it again. Can you begin to put it to the ground together? Every other person, about 15 people that are part of this project at different levels, all gone. I didn't follow back. I didn't go to Abuja. I was seated in Lagos. I didn't bother. I just, they're from different world. They're briefcase people. So what I'm trying to say at times is you can. And I think in the long term, and I think 11 years running an agency, I qualify to say it. Make friends, have relationship, be good to people, be humble, no chips on your shoulders. But you can't run an agency where it's not about percentages and deals.
Yeah.
And you get far. And I can tell you a lot of like experiences. And Rosemary is one of them. I can boldly say that, not because she's on this call. I can look her in the face and say that. Do you know her from Adam? She got a call. I walked in there. She said, are you the Victor everybody's talking about? We said, you know, we walked, did the page, did something and all. And it was clear. It was about the work. And yes, there are times you terrorize me, call, we run and everything. It was about the work. We became friends on the job. And trust me, if you come into our office, you know, I mean, she had the presence that could make anybody get torn to pieces. And yet, it was about the job. And today we're good friends. I can pick up my phone call and all that. The relationships last longer. When you reduce it to transaction, you've gotten your dues sorted. You don't have relationships there. And you can't call on those figures there. And I mean, just to share a few of my experiences anyway.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Moyele, I mean, there are two questions directed at you. So I'll quickly read them out. You can take them one after the other as quick and as sharp as you possibly can. The first one says, sir, please, how do I handle a situation in which my boss does not appreciate my work, even when I succeed? I mean, that sort of paints some of the questions you had very early at Cadbury. The second one says, hello, all my question directed at Mr. Omoyele. During your time at Cadbury, how did you successfully manage the pressure of a new demanding role at Bonvita? Can you help us with that?
Okay, let me try and answer the first question. And this is the question that always comes through, in terms of credit. Now, so the response I always give to people when I have this conversation is quotes. And let me paraphrase the wife of a former American president or someone that said that we will achieve great things if we don't bother about who gets the credit. Now, this might seem very painful, especially when you've done great work. But I think that I always say, and this is how I've dealt with it, and I can only recommend it as a possible option, is first of all, who do you owe a great work that you do? All right. Based on my beliefs, the first person I owe is God Almighty, because it says that whatever I do it to God's glory. So, but even if you don't have such faith beliefs, the second person is my conscience that I am doing great work. And therefore, if I've put in great work and I'm satisfied that I've done great work, there's first of all, there's self-fulfillment. So that's a process. Now, if my boss or anybody else doesn't recognize it, while it can be painful, I remind myself that I'm doing this not because I just want to please my boss, but because I have objectives and I want to deliver them and satisfy myself that I've delivered it well. So that's how I have handled it, and that's a possible way of handling it. That you don't worry too much about getting the credit, so to speak. If it comes, great. If it doesn't come, you have a sense of self-satisfaction that you've done great work, and you move on. And I think that what I always say, that in due season, you don't give up. In due season, you will get the credits, probably even better than if the boss had given it to you. So it can be painful, but I think that in such cases, what you just develop is a Teflon skin and just keep doing great work. The reward will come, okay? So it might not be the answer that you wanted to hear, but that's the way I've kind of dealt with it over time. Secondly, how do you manage pressure? And it's a great question. Again, I'll start from the fact that because of my belief system, I typically will pray first of all and ask for direction. Okay, so even if you don't have that belief system, is first of all, sit back. So first thing not to do is to panic. Is to step back and say, okay, look, I have this demanding role. And then, these days I hear a lot about imposter syndrome. Do you have the capabilities and stuff like that? So throw away that. Believe in yourself. Have a self-belief. And understand that even if you don't have all the capabilities, you can quickly grow the capabilities and seek for help where need be. So look for those who can support you through that period, but also recognize that you're going to do a lot of hard work. So what I did in the case of Bonvita was step back despite the pressure. I prayed and then began to consult with people who had gone ahead. So before me, there were more senior people who had handled the brand in the past. So I consulted, and I also got people who could support me, but I also had to put in the grind and quickly try and know as much as possible about the new role, so to speak. So when they say hit the ground running, that's really what you need to do. Hit the ground running as quickly as possible, learn as much as you can, and make sure you look at low-hanging fruits, things that you can do that you can quickly succeed at. So as you succeed in some things, it gives you more confidence. But even if you do fail, just take it on your chin and move on. So I think these are some of the things that have helped me in terms of managing pressure points, new roles.
Thanks a lot, boss. There's a question here that I find interesting. I would have wanted to ask Mr. Falabi, but let me just push it to Mr. Sakbo. It says, how do you manage a situation where your boss or the management, the limitation of the management, it leads to repeated inadequacies and failure? So let's say you're a junior pro, your boss or the management's inadequacy. I don't know how you arrived at inadequacy of your management, but there always are some inadequacy. How do you deal with the fact that their failings or their inadequacies leading to organizational-wide challenges and failures? How do you deal with that? I wanted to ask Mr. Folabi, because of the experience he shared earlier, but maybe your
Yes.
perspective will help.
Yes,
What
yes.
about you?
It's a very good question, and I find that happens quite a lot. I think that if you're the one who's asking the question, or you're the one who's in the particular situation where you're more junior in an organization, and from your observation, management is making decisions that are either leading to failures in the organization or not enabling the organization to succeed as much as they can. I always say, it's a famous saying of mine, that words can't be inside your mouth and be bad. You have to speak up. So, and I also recognize that it's not a lot of leaders that are open to such feedback. So you must check the environment, know who's the safest person you could speak to concerning your thoughts around decisions or circumstances that the management is making that are not appropriate. So speak to either your line manager or a senior person you feel can pass the message on. So keeping quiet is usually not the best thing to do. Speak up. Speak up. I mean, it's a workplace. No one's going to kill you. Speak up. But if you also find that consistently it is impacting your career, impacting where you want to go to or be as an individual, then if you've spoken up several times and you're not seeing things changing, perhaps you do what Victor has done. Perhaps your calling is in another place. You never know with these things. Maybe you'll be the next Victor Folabi if you decided to venture out of the place. Because for you to be seeing what's not being done right, it could be indication of two things. One, you could be the answer that organization needs. So you need to speak up and tell them, guys, why don't we do it this way? If you're not being listened to, or your suggestions are not being considered, and you feel that it is impacting you as a person, perhaps you have a solution that you need to go and develop somewhere that may be the angle you would take it from. So that's my contribution to that.
Okay, as we bring, things to a head, I'd just like to ask, my outro questions. Each one of you, if you are to advise much younger colleagues, where we mostly are, what do you want us to take away from this session about embracing failure, and understanding the inevitability of it and making the best of it? What would be your last thoughts? And this is like an opportunity to give us the best of you as our takeaway. Anybody can go first, really. You have the floor. It belongs to the three of you.
Okay, let me go. Rosemary's keeping quiet. Victor is also keeping quiet. So let me go.
You're our Egwana. Please go first.
It should be beauty before age. But okay. Like I said, I'd learned a lot about failure over time. Well, one of the most paradigm shifting things for me, much as I learned a lot about failure, was in the year, sometime in the 2000s, where an award that I thought I deserved and everybody else thought I deserved in the company was a big deal, so to speak, eluded me. And it was painful because I also didn't think that the process through which it had eluded me was necessarily open, transparent, and valid. Okay, so it was kind of painful, right? And you got to know that on a Friday. So I used the weekend to process things. And unfortunately for me, in that period, I was reading the book written by John C. Maxwell, Failing Forward. So I more or less read it during that period. So when that incident happened, I actually applied a number of the things that I'd read in the book. And one of those things is what I spoke to earlier about, the humility. So over the weekend, I processed these things. I said, so when I'm going on Monday, painful as I felt about this thing, how do I deal with it? So I So first thing on Monday, just like Rosemary was talking about, first thing on Monday, I went straight to the person who had won the award to say, congratulations, right? And the minute I stepped into the hallway in the office, right, in Cadbury, Nigeria, that the minute I stepped, I could see everybody just kept quiet, because you know how it is when people feel, look, this guy should have won this, but the process was not. So this guy is coming to this office, right? And I walked into the guy's office, and he himself was shocked. I could see the nerves as he got up to greet me, and I said, called his name, and I said, congratulations. Okay. So it was one of the ways of trying to just deal with what seemed like a failure. But I also said to myself, I didn't get this, all right, but I was just going to put in even better work, such that in the future, not because of the award, but just to prove to myself. So I put in the work. I put in even better work than ever before. And in that following year, the kind of results that I delivered were, and by the way, I'm talking about with modesty, already been seen as a high performer. So within that particular year, I even, what you call them, said, outperformed my records. So what I've learned from seeming failure is take it in, process it, try and analyze, even if it's not your fault, what could you do better? And let that propel you to doing even better things. And that's what I always learned. I mean, that same process, what I did when I didn't get a promotion in a particular year, and I felt I deserved it, all right? Well, I just said to myself, fine, I've taken lessons, what can I do better? And then just push myself to do better into the future. So I think humility, take the learnings and just challenge yourself to do better is the way I've managed failure. And that's why I like the theme of this webinar, which is also similar to the book I talked about, John C. Maxwell, about failing forward, and because let failure propel you forward as opposed to put you down. Right.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Mr. Vic, Mr. Falabi, any last thoughts?
Thank you. I mean, just 3 words. I mean, we've said it all, and of course, my bosses also have said it. I think for me, it's 3 words. It's about curiosity to young people. Just be curious. What's the worst that can happen? Either is down this road. I think we take ourselves too seriously. Okay. When they say people say, most times I'm not interested about what people have said. I think we overrate ourselves. And so if you don't take yourself too seriously, you'll be very curious. The other thing is that it makes you very adventurous. When you ask people what are they really afraid of in doing things, or what do they really hate most about failure, is what people will say. Question, who cares? If you get to that point where you ask yourself, who cares what people will say, it makes you more audacious. And I think curiosity, being adventurous, and the last one being humble. Those are, for me, the 3 key recipes for you to be able to settle with your failure. You can live with your failure. You can learn from your failure, and you can propel yourself forward, like Lampe has said, with failure. So it's being curious. It's being adventurous. Just don't be curious about asking questions alone. Like Rosemary said, why did you fail? Be curious. The next thing is be adventurous. Don't let it stop you. Take more risks. Look for more trouble. Break more China. More glasswares and all that. Do all that. And the final thing is be humble about it. When you don't take yourself too seriously, you don't worry if people make fun of you or not. Is an over-bloated opinion and impression of ourselves, which comes out of it, that makes us afraid. And people said, I lost it. Even you, even GD. So who cares? Because finally, I mean, you're the owner of your success and your failures finally. And people are entitled to their opinions, and you are violating their rights. When you want to forcefully decide that they must think in a particular manner about you, it's become witchcraft. So let people think and assume and do whatever they like, but you be at peace with yourself when you are humble and you don't take yourself too seriously. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that. Mrs. Rosemary Akpo, your outgoing thoughts?
Yes, my final words are 3 sentences, and I've said them over and over again, but I just want to reiterate them so we don't miss them. The first one is, don't be afraid to fail. Success and failures are the 2 sides of the same coin. They are part of the journey. The second one is, show me a person who has never failed, and I will show you a person who has never tried anything. In the process of growth, trying things, you will fail. It's not because you said so. It's the normal thing in life. So learn to accept it. My final words is never ever consider failure is an event. It's not a person. Failure is an event, same as success. Never ever consider anything as a failure. We either succeed or we learn from it. Be comfortable with asking why. If you succeed, ask yourself why. If you fail, ask yourself why. In asking why, you unearth the things that you either did well or didn't do well, so that you either avoid them next time or you learn from them and do them better or do more of them next time. Those are my 3 closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, gentlemen and lady. It's been an exciting time for me. I mean, quite a lot of thoughts to put together. I should just reiterate again that, I mean, if you came in a bit late or missed any aspect of the really engaging and interesting session that we've had, allow us a day or two. We'll be uploading the full recording of the session on our YouTube page, and you can go there, listen again, or just browse through some of the previous edition. It's been very exciting today, and I hope it was just as exciting and informative for you. Please allow me welcome the man around whom all of us have converged, really, our facilitator and coordinator, Mr. Ademola Adeshola, to just help give vote of thanks as we plan to depart. Ademola, over to you, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Larry. And I really want to say a big thank you to Mrs. Ekpo, Mr. Moyele, Mr. Afolabi for the time and your wealth of experience which you've shared with us today. And frankly, this topic has come at the very right time, and I really want to thank the team who suggested and said that this would be the right topic to deal with today.
The harvest online.
So I want to say thank you, sirs, and thank you, Mrs. Ekpo. Thank you for everyone who have joined in. We do this every month, and a couple of other sessions we do. This is one of the sessions we do, Mentors on Soul, as we call it. Okay, so next month will be another time for another session, and we will make announcement about the topic and who will be coming to see it on our store. So I say thank you so very much, sir, and I hope that the next time we call you, Mrs. Ekpo, the next time we call you, Mr. Falabi, you would honor us and respond. And this is a very big thank you and a special thank you to Mr. Omoyele. He's been a father to the brief faculty and I mean, someone we defer to every now and then for every decision we make. So thank you very much, sir, for always being there for us and your support personally and to the team as well. So with the final say goodbye. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Good night.
You can exchange pleasantries if you want to. If you're seeing somebody you've not seen for a while, you can talk to the person while we wait to end this meeting.